In such point of view, however, have we not for the present a volunteer ally, stronger than all the rest, namely hunger? Hunger for what rushing of panic terror this and the sum total of our other miseries may bring. Hello everyone, my name is Persohn. You can contact me at pastor@mascot.church or in the comments below if you're interested. You can like, share, subscribe these videos, like, share, and subscribe. Send the videos to your friends, to your enemies. Who knows? Back on the Zettelkasten topic today, that quote was from Thomas Carlyle's book on the French Revolution. More on that later, and some more quotes to come from this time in history. And as we talk about literature notes. So in Zettelkasten, there are different types of notes. The first type of note that you may come across would be what we might call a fleeting note. That is, and they're usually they're the first I've generated, and I think that would be common for a lot of people. It's this thought that you have that needs to be crystallized into some form of action or into some deeper study or whatever, so you create a fleeting note. You might not quite know how to connect it to anything else just yet. It sort of sits on the orb out there, unless it is related, then you start linking it. But once you start getting into the more robust, long-term notes that you'll record in Zettelkasten, you come across the need to record quotes. And we call those literature notes or reference notes. So they're more technical. There's more information on them, and usually you have, once you build them with a good relationship to each other. Now, one of the ways to understand what's gone on in our world in the last few years and what's taking place all over the world is to look at the template for a destruction of a civilization, and the best template is the French Revolution. The French Revolution was a frightful and terrible, horrible time in human history. It's not what it's cracked up to be. We celebrate it today, but we should really think carefully before we do. It was very much the beginning of, and the template for the beginning of removing freedoms from common people everywhere. It's such a tragic event, and I'm surprised how many people know nothing about it, don't know the names of the players or whatever. Well, the opening slide, I have 3 images. I've got the image of a library that, of course, reflects the literature note element of this. I've got a picture of the guillotine, which was used to behead so many people, many of whom were innocent during this time. Frightful, frightful time, truly. And on the bottom is a picture of from a painting of a letter held in the hand of a reprehensible body in the time of the French Revolution, that is Marat, and you can read about him. So the quote came from Thomas Carlyle's book, published in 1837, which I'm pretty sure is in the public domain. You can get the PDF of it. It's a few hundred pages. And as I've been refreshing my memory on this, looking at how to interpret the events of 2020 and 2021, 22 actually, and how our world has changed, gone back to reviewing my knowledge of the French Revolution, saying, yes, well, we've seen this all before. So this was a quote of that comes from the book. Now, I'd like to recap the entire history of the French Revolution, but it's just not possible. It's such a long and tedious and horrible event. Nevertheless, one of the things used to drive people to go to war as the revolution came to its end was hunger. There was no, people were told, the men were told, go to war, we'll pay you, the money can stay for your family. So hunger was used as a tool. It also, of course, drove the mobs mad. And it's really an important element of the whole story. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of other quotes and then show you how I've referenced them and how I intend to reference them as literature notes. And for some of you, especially younger people, if you've not studied the French Revolution, you don't want to study it in terms of the modern representation of it, because that's a very, very incorrect representation. You really want to go back and read some of these things from much earlier in history. Carlyle's book is worth reading. A bit heavy because of language we're not quite used to using, but not too bad. So here is something earlier, an earlier quote. Let me see if I actually have this in order. I'm going to, yes, okay. Well, anyways, let me just read the quote directly from Carlyle's book. In the months of February and March, it is recorded the terror especially of rural France, had risen even to the transcendental pitch, not far from madness. In town and hamlet is rumor of war, massacre, that Austrians, aristocrats above all, that the brigands are close by. Men quit their houses and huts, rushed, fugitive, shrieking, with wife and child, they know not whither. Such a terror, the eyewitnesses say, never fell in a nation, nor shall fall again, even in reigns of terror expressly. Horrible. Just think, just kind of get a picture, ladies and gentlemen. This happened. This happened in the French Revolution. Men quit their houses and huts, rushed, fugitive, shrieking, with wife and child, they know not whither. They took their children, just ran in terror of what was going on. Terror, and that's a big element of the French Revolution. Of course, I read the hunger quote, and then a little farther on, there is a quote as well. I'm going to read to you, then show you how this whole literature notes thing needs to happen. I'm going to check on my computer, be sure everything is all fine. Yes. And here is another very poignant quote. One of many I'll collect on this. And the next morning answers its officers, pay us then, and we will march with you to the world's end. Right? So this is this whole sense. If you pay us, we'll march with you to the world's end. So you have this sense of desperate tragedy going on in the French Revolution. Okay, so I'm reading this, and I want to get a sense of it. I want to get the quotes that mean something to me. I want to put it together maybe in a lecture. I want to just understand my knowledge of this thing. I want to try to interpret the mob mentality that we've seen in the last 2 years. I want to try to get a hold of all of those things. I'm using the French Revolution for this purpose, and of course the Russian Revolution is a similar sort of thing later on. It followed very much the model of the French Revolution, believe it or not. So what do? First thing I do is I create a bridging note. Now this says, can I see that? Yeah, well anyways, it says bridging in the top corner. You don't have to do it this way, but all notes in Zettelkasten must have an ID. Very, very important. So I just started this process this week. And my bridging note was the first cab off the rank, 20221013A. Now, why do I do it like that? Well, because I can sort them in time order from very early. So next year, we'll start with 2023. So I can put them in order, and I know. The other reason, and I've said this so many times, when you do your note IDs like this, you can see how your understanding of a thing has progressed over time. It's a great look into your own mind. So what is on this bridging note? On the bridging note is every note. I don't know that you can see that. I don't know that you need to see this, but it is every note that I am using that's relating to this. So the bridge is the node, and everything else is out there. We know about this, and I know I'm driving it home. So let's just grab, for example, 202210B. So this is the first literature note. Now there's a lot more on a literature note. You can do this in a number of different ways. The point with a literature note is either to directly quote what you have seen, or to quote what you've seen in a way that speaks to you in your own words. But it doesn't matter which way you do this. If you do, you still need to point to the origin of the bit of literature. And if your origin is a YouTube lecture, for example, then you can open the transcript button and you can find out how many minutes in. You can actually copy the transcript manually and do that. A lot of people don't know you can do that in YouTube, but YouTube will show a transcript of all of the text. Very powerful little tool. Or you can just simply say at 21 minutes, the guy said blah, 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 blah. Okay, but you need to be able to get back to that source. So what have I done here? Well, this is the long form of what I've done, and this will serve well. So when I open my card here, back to the glasses. Goodness me. I have the key session, and I've just said here, it's a lit. So I know this is a literature note, as opposed to a fleeting note or something like that. So when I go through and fix these up, I'm going to mark these and be sure that I haven't missed this with any of my older cards. And so the first thing here is the source of that. Very important. French Revolution, A History, Thomas Carlyle, page 317, PDF, chapters 2.5.VI. So I've listed the chapters the same way he's done, which is 2.5.6 in Roman numerals. But I've also stated that it's from the PDF. Because if I get the printed version of the book anywhere, if I see it somewhere, I'll pick it up and buy it. The PDF and the printed might have different page values. So I need to be able to get right back to this quote, which is important. I think you can find this PDF online. It's way out of print, so that should be fine. So I have accurately noted where it comes from. The point of the literature note is I need to get back to the text because I need to get back to the context of the whole passage, frequently anyways. Then what I've done is I've summarized this quote here in a way that speaks to me. So it's not a direct literal. I could do a direct literal. It's going to take a number of cards. What have I done to summarize this quote? ... Terror, especially of rural France, liven to transcendental pitch. Men quit their houses, shrieking with wife and child, never fell in a nation, nor shall again. So that's enough to say, I know what's going on. I could use that in a lecture. I could use it in an article or whatever. And now what I've done here is on the bottom, I do something else, and I recommend that you do that. I have a shorthand that doesn't necessarily refer to the bridging note, but it does tell me a little bit more about where the card should go. So my shorthand says FR, French Revolution, obviously, terror, and then culture, because these things are well related. So what I need to do now, I just needed to pause and take a quick drink. I've been talking now for a little while in the 2 videos and just needed to clear my throat. Okay, so that's how I've recorded that card. Now I have 2 others that were recorded on the same day. And again, if you do, when you do literature notes, you have to be very careful to be able to get back to your source. You just don't want to get into a quote war with anybody or even with yourself. You want to say, well, what was the writer saying? Why and how? What is the context? So if I use this information in a talk or in a lecture or a message or something like that, I'll go back and read, the pages either side of it to be sure that I have a good sense of what's going on. And Carlyle's book is a tough read. The content is tough, but also the language isn't exactly what we're using anymore. So I've done that. Now, in the next one, I have done, let me see here. So that was B. In C, I've already begun to shorten down and shorthand the location of the book because I'm going to be using this so often here. French Rev-TC, Thomas Carlyle, P372, PDF 2.5.8. That's enough to get me there. When I did the first one, I thought that'll definitely get me there, but now I can shorten it down a lot more, and that's what I've done. So how have I done the second quote? First of all, let me read the Thomas Carlyle quote to you, and then here's what my second one is. And you can see this is on the heading slide that we'll show you just a moment as we close this topic. How am I going time-wise, by the way? I'm all right. In such point of view, however, have we not for the present a volunteer ally stronger than all the rest, namely hunger? Hunger and what rushing of panic terror this and the sum total of our other miseries may bring. Such wonderful writing, okay? So that's the full quote. The way I've recorded this, in such point of view, however, have we not for the present a volunteer ally stronger than the rest, namely hunger, hunger. So I've shortened this, but it means something to us. And I've done something similar with the last one. Okay, take-home lessons here, ladies and gentlemen. Very important. You will do literature notes if you want your Zettelkasten approach to work. The literature notes will be based on a bridge. That is a node note, which is really valuable, even if you're doing this electronically. The literature notes will contain more information than a fleeting. They'll kind of rephrase the quote or maybe a direct quote, because that can be maybe too long. One of the advantages of doing this in a paper form is rather than a copy and paste. In a copy and paste electronically, I can just copy it and drag it. I don't quite have the relationship with the text. Now by rephrasing this, I have a much deeper relationship. I have a much deeper feeling for what's going on. So that's an upside. Now, if you're interested in reading more about the French Revolution, and I strongly recommend that you do, Thomas Carlyle's book can be found, I'm pretty sure, just do a search on the internet. It's PDF. It's way, way, way out of print. Here's another very important book on this topic, which is James H. Billington, Fire in the Minds of Men. And it talks a lot about revolution and about the French Revolution. And the advantage of Billington's book is it's very well indexed. Now, it doesn't tell the whole story. There are influences in the French Revolution that neither book deals particularly well with. But this is such a complex element, it's such a complex thing that you need to gather all that information. Nevertheless, if you want to see what's going on in our society today and how it works and how freedoms have been taken from average people, what's the template? The French Revolution is a pretty good thing to study, and I strongly recommend it. Well, my name is Persohn, always has been, and I hope you enjoyed today's talk. This has been Zettelkasten. A little look at literature notes using the French Revolution as a bit of an example. Thomas Carlyle's book, Hunger, Hunger, the Ally Stronger Than the Rest. We'll be back again in a couple of weeks with our next Zettelkasten video.